Instagram teen accounts have automatic protections for what teens see and who can contact them, plus time management tools. And Instagram will continue adding built-in safety features to help create age-appropriate experiences. Learn more about teen accounts and Instagram's ongoing work to protect teens online at instagram.com/teenaccounts.
As a contractor, I don't pay for materials I don't use. So why would I pay for stuff I don't need in my mobile plan? That's why my Biz Plan from Verizon Business is so perfect. Now I can choose exactly what I want, and I only pay for what I need.
Right now, with my Biz Plan, get our best price, as low as $25 a line. Visit verizon.com/business to get started today. New lines only. Price per month with 5+ lines. Includes auto pay and paper-free billing and promotional discounts. Taxes, fees, economic adjustment charge. Applicable add-ons, prices, and terms apply. Guarantee applies to base monthly rate and stated discounts only. Add-on prices additional. Offers in March 31st, 2026.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of True Crime with Caitlyn. Before we get into today's case, I do want to give a very quick warning. This is a particularly harrowing case. It was one that was really difficult to research and probably will be very difficult to listen to. This is the case of a young woman who was on the brink of a beautiful new chapter in her life, motherhood, when that future was cruelly ripped away from her. It's a case that sent shockwaves through her community, and one that before researching into it, I had never heard anything like. This is the murder of Bobbi Jo Stinnett. Bobbi Jo Potter was born on the 4th of December 1981 and was raised in Skidmore, Missouri, a really small, quiet city where everyone knew everyone. The population of the city was under 300 residents, and so everyone really did know everyone, and the community were very close and tight-knit. The people here would stop and talk to their neighbours, they'd all look out for each other, and because it was so small, there was a real sense of community. Bobbi Jo was very close to her mother Becky and looked up to her grandfather as her father figure. She attended Nordaway High School, where she was described as a good student. For just a bit of perspective on how small Skidmore actually is, Bobbi was one of 22 students in her graduating class. There were only 22 other people in her year at school. This is where she would meet Zeb Stinnett, and the two immediately clicked. They dated throughout their time in high school, and shortly after graduating in 2000, they would get married. Bobbi Jo was described by people who knew her as a really sweet girl. She could be a little bit on the shy side, but as soon as you got to know her and she started to feel comfortable with you, she would fully express her funny, daft, silly nature. She and her friends loved having sleepovers, staying up all night long, gossiping, laughing, and just having a great time together. She was also partial to going for a dip in the local river. Bobbi Jo was someone who was also very trusting. She was caring, she was gentle, she was kind, the type of person who wouldn't hurt a fly. One of Bobbi Jo's passions in life was animals. She loved horses, but she was a huge dog lover, and her favourite breed were rat terriers. After marrying Zeb, the couple would move in together, and Bobbi Jo and Zeb decided that they were going to adopt two of their own terriers. They adopted a boy and a girl and hoped that the two would breed, which they did. They had a little litter of puppies. Bobbi Jo set up her own breeding business from home, which she named Happy Haven Farms, and soon this passion became her full-time job. She would make an account on a forum which was specifically dedicated to rat terriers, and their page was actually named Ratter Chatter. Bobbi Jo connected with other rat terrier lovers on here, and she would use the page to advertise puppies that she was selling. She would give updates on the pregnant dogs that she had, And she also posted things about her personal life too. People in the group became really friendly and fond of one another, and they built up an online community where they would share things with one another and they would look to see what everyone else was posting, what they were up to. In the springtime of 2004, Bobbi Jo excitedly announced that she was pregnant with her and Zeb's first child. She was going to be having a little girl, and both parents were so excited for this next chapter. It felt like the next natural direction for their relationship, and there was no one that was more suited to motherhood than Bobbi Jo. She was so nurturing, loving, patient, affectionate, maternal, and she would have been the most perfect mother. Friends said that while she was pregnant, Bobbi Jo had an internal glow from how happy she was and that she really rocked the baby bump. On the afternoon of the 16th of December 2004, Becky rang her daughter Bobbi Jo at around about 2:30 p.m. to check that Bobbi Jo was okay picking her up from work in around about an hour's time. Bobbi Jo said yes, she would, but she needed to jump off the phone as someone was at the house looking at a litter of some puppies. This person had came to buy one. So Becky jumped off the phone, expecting to see her daughter very soon. The hour quickly went by and Becky was stood waiting for Bobbi Jo, but she was nowhere to be seen. She waited for a period of time before going back inside of her workplace and ringing her daughter again to see if she had already left or if she was stuck behind, but Bobbi Jo didn't pick up. Becky decided that she was going to walk over to Bobbi Jo's house, which was only 2 blocks away, so that would have taken her no longer than about 10 minutes, and Becky said as much on the voicemail that she left behind. She made her way over, and as soon as her eyes landed on her daughter's little white house, she knew that something looked off. The front door of the home was left wide open, and this was in the middle of a cold December day, and as you can imagine, this wasn't a usual thing with a house full of dogs. Becky stepped inside and called out for Bobbi Jo, but was met with silence. She knew that her daughter was still there, her parked car outside being evidence of that, so she began walking through the house trying to look for her daughter. I imagine that Becky probably went directly to the bedroom, expecting Bobbi Jo to be napping. She was heavily pregnant at 8 months along, and so maybe she was tired, had a little lie down, not expecting to fall asleep, and all of this was something that they would soon be laughing about. But when Becky walked into that bedroom, she would walk into a living nightmare. Lay on the ground motionless and covered in blood was her daughter. She had what was described as a catastrophic injury to her abdomen, and there was blood everywhere. Becky raced for the phone and in a panic called 911, and she, through tears and distress, told the dispatcher that it looked like Bobbi Jo's stomach had exploded. Sheriffs and deputies raced to the home, closely followed by paramedics who did everything that they could to try and resuscitate and save Bobbi Jo, but their efforts were sadly futile. 23-year-old Bobbi Jo Stinnett was pronounced dead. Everyone's attention quickly diverted to the baby. Bobbi Jo had sustained a horrific injury to her abdomen. What if it had hurt the baby? Was the baby still alive inside of its dead mother's body? And if so, what would the effects of that be? This sent a panic through everyone at the scene, and that is when medical staff made the haunting discovery that the baby was missing. Back at the Skidmore house, a sheriff described the scene as something unlike he had ever seen before. There was so much blood on the floor that one of the detectives described where Bobbi Jo had been laying looking like someone had done a snow angel. The blood evidence told the detectives that the attack was restricted to only the back bedroom, which happened to be where the kennels were. There were no signs of forced entry, no foreign fingerprints that they could find, and no murder weapon was left behind. They knew from Becky that Bobbi Jo had had someone come over to look at the dogs that afternoon, and the attack happening in the area of the kennels made sense along with the no forced entry. If this was a person that Bobbi Jo was expecting, she would have allowed them, invited them into her home. Door-to-door inquiries were conducted where a neighbour told the officers that they noticed what they believed was a Japanese-style, small, dirty car parked up outside of the house around the time that they believed that the murder had taken place, and this wasn't a car that they had ever recognised seeing before. I don't really know what the process is of buying or adopting a dog. I don't have any pets, but I do feel like I vaguely know that when you're buying a puppy, you need to go and visit it a couple of times to kind of bond with it a little bit. So seeing this car there only once and never seen it before stood out to this neighbour as unusual considering what had happened to Bobbi Jo. Meanwhile, other officers tried to get an Amber Alert issued for the baby. If you don't know what an Amber Alert is, it's an emergency notification that gets broadcasted with information about a missing child who is believed to have been abducted. This notification will include physical details about the child, such as their hair colour, their height, their weight, eye colour, stuff like that, identifying features of the abducted person. The notification goes to people's phones, it goes to the TVs and the radios, some billboards I believe too, and things like that. This is so as many people learn about the disappearance as quickly as possible in hopes to quickly find the missing child. So, the officers in this case tried to put in for an Amber Alert for Bobbi Jo's baby, but shockingly, they were knocked back because of a loophole, because of a technicality. Because they hadn't set eyes on the baby, they were unable to provide information like if the baby had any hair, if so what colour it was, the baby's eye colour, the approximate weight, height, length and things like that. And so, because they couldn't provide those details, an alert could not go out. The officers though weren't ready to take no for an answer. They had no idea where this baby was, if she was even alive, if she was safe. She had clearly been taken by the person who had brutally murdered her mother, and so they were going to stop at absolutely nothing to try and find this child. They went to a congressman appealing their case to him, who managed to get the alert pushed through in under 2 hours. So it could have been done earlier. Those precious minutes in the early hours of this case been wasted, and everyone knows that in a child abduction case, every single minute is vital. At the hospital, Bobbi Jo's body was examined, and I actually saw some of the autopsy photos in a really old report about this case, and the injuries that were inflicted on her are nothing short of devastating. She had blue bruising to her face, 2 really deep red ligature marks around her neck. She had the wounds to her stomach and internal organs, which helped identify her cause of death. But tangled in one of her fists, she had some strings of long dark hair, which everyone believed belonged to her attacker. Bobbi herself didn't have long hair, she had a brunette bob cut, so who else's hair could this possibly be tangled up inside of her fist? This helped cement the idea that the attacker was a woman, but also showed that Bobbi Jo had tried to fight her off. The family granted detectives access to Bobbi Jo's electronics, and during a search of her computer, they found a message thread between Bobbi Jo and a woman named Darlene Fisher. It was Darlene who told Bobbi Jo that she was from nearby Fairfax, Missouri, who was at the house when Becky had first rang asking for a lift. When Darlene's name was put through whatever system they were using, nothing came up. Her name wasn't registered to any houses, she wasn't registered to vote, and no driving licenses were registered with her name, which if she had drove the 20 minutes from her home in Fairfax to Skidmore, you'd think she would have at least had a license. No one mentioned a second person being there that day, like a husband, a friend, a partner, anything like that. So Darlene must have drove herself. Quite quickly after the Amber Alert went out, police would receive a tip from a woman all the way in North Carolina, which would prove to be absolutely vital. This woman was also a part of the Ratter Chatter forum that I mentioned earlier, who happened to follow Bobbi Jo's posts, enlightening the police to a post where Bobbi Jo and Darlene had had some sort of exchange. The day before the murder, Darlene had commented on one of Bobbi Jo's posts saying, quote, "Please get in touch with me soon as we are considering the purchase of one of your puppies." The women then connected, speaking back and forth for a couple of hours through their private messages, and Bobbi Jo publicly replied to her comment saying, quote, "I've emailed you with the directions so we can meet. I do hope the email reaches you. Great chatting with you on Messenger, and I do look forward to chatting with you tomorrow." A detective described his adrenaline as beginning to rush as they were able to find this post and so track the IP address, praying that this would lead them directly to Darlene, who at this moment in time was the last person to see Bobbi Jo before she was murdered. Unfortunately though, the IP address didn't lead them to Darlene. It led them to the home of a man named Kevin Montgomery, and he lived all the way in Malvern, Kansas, 120 miles away. But this was their best bet, their most promising lead, and so the detectives jumped into their cars, putting their feet down on the pedals and sped towards the Montgomery house. 5 officers arrived at number 32419 Adams Road in Malvern, Kansas, ready to confront whoever was inside, hoping that they could find Darlene Fisher. The house is situated in a pretty remote area, and so immediately upon the police's arrival, the dogs at the home began barking. The dogs being little rat terriers. Upon hearing the barks, a man stepped outside of the house and seemed really shocked to find that the police were on his doorstep. He identified himself as Kevin Montgomery, and the police told him that they were investigating the murder of a young woman. Could they come inside to ask him a couple of questions? Kevin was fine with that, and he turned around, began walking, leading the detectives back up into his house, when suddenly he stops. He turns around and tells the detectives that his wife, who was inside, had just had a baby. As Kevin entered his home, followed by all 5 of the officers, their TV, situated on the back wall, flashed with their Amber Alert, and sat on the couch in front of the TV was a woman. In her arms, she's cradling a small baby. Only this woman wasn't Darlene Fisher. This was 36-year-old Lisa Montgomery. Lisa Montgomery smiled up to the officers, but what was on her face wasn't a pleasant, warm, glowy smile. It was described as an unnerving one. The officers explained to her why they were there. They're investigating the murder of Bobbi Jo Stinnett and the kidnapping of her baby. Upon hearing her name, Lisa starts fearing not knowing her, kind of hooing and hawing, which is confusing to Kevin, who immediately speaks up. He says to Lisa, "You do know her. We were just talking about her this morning." The couple had probably saw all of the news broadcasts because this was a massive story. Everyone was covering it. Everyone was talking about it. And so it would make sense that even if they were complete and utter strangers, Lisa would recognize her name. Partially because of this, what was appearing like Lisa distancing herself away from Bobbi Jo, those alarm bells continued ringing for the officers. They started asking her about the baby in her arms. Lisa said that the baby was her daughter, who she had just given birth to in a nearby women's centre. She was asked to provide the officers with the discharge papers just to confirm the story. If she did have legit discharge papers, they were obviously speaking to the wrong person. She asked Kevin to go outside to retrieve them. He went out to his truck, which he had used to pick Lisa and the baby up from a car park. Not the car park of the women's centre, just a random ass car park, but he said that he couldn't find the discharge papers. The lead detective then decided to ask Lisa if they could talk a little bit more outside. He was sensing that she was picking up on their suspicions, and in his gut, he knew the baby in her arms was Bobbi Jo's, so the sooner that he could get the baby off of her, away from any chance of her being hurt by her, the better. He asked Lisa if one of the other officers could have a hold of the baby while them two were talking, and surprisingly, she said yes. She pulled herself up off of the couch and almost waddled towards the officers, walking in a way which someone who had just had a baby would probably walk. Once outside, Lisa confessed to the detective that she hadn't given birth in a women's centre, she had had a secret home birth. The Montgomerys weren't financially comfortable by any means, and she would describe them as being poor. Lisa said that she couldn't afford to go into a proper medical setting to give birth, and so instead she had a home birth surrounded by a couple of her friends for support. She didn't want her husband to know that she had had the home birth because then he would feel bad that they couldn't afford to go into a proper medical centre for it. So instead, she secretly gave birth in her kitchen. Hearing that several other people were present during the birth was interesting to the detective. If he could speak to them and confirm Lisa's story, then maybe the baby was in fact her own. But just as quick as she came up with this story, it began falling apart. When asked to provide the name of her friends, she admitted that they weren't physically there, but they were sitting by their phones just in case she needed to ring them for a bit of help or support. This story wasn't going to convince anyone, and especially this detective, as the entire time she is spinning this story, telling this tale, he's looking at her hands, her fingers specifically, which have remnants of dry blood on them, seeped into her cuticles, and her nail beds. He believed that it belonged to Bobbi Jo. They continued talking outside for some period of time, and at the sight of her in-laws pulling up towards their house, Lisa became distinctly more agitated and frustrated, angry even, and she asked the detective if he could take her somewhere else to speak, which he gladly did, moving the interview to a local sheriff's office. Lisa Montgomery profusely denied any involvement in the murder of Bobbi Jo and the kidnapping of her daughter. During her interviews, Lisa was described as being very tough, and the detectives didn't know if they were going to get her to break. But one of them did notice that she would only speak to them when she was smoking a cigarette. I think that this was a subconscious thing for her. She didn't really know that she was doing it. So as soon as she had smoked one and put the butt in the ashtray, the detective lit another one up and passed it over to Lisa in order to keep her talking. The interview went on for hours, well into the afternoon, when seemingly out of nowhere, Lisa said, quote, "You have Bobbi Jo's baby." She then coldly made a complete confession, showing absolutely no emotion, no remorse for the heinous act that she committed. Bobbi Jo Stinnett and Lisa Montgomery had first met at a dog show in April 2004. Lisa would begin following Bobbi Jo's posts on Reddit Chatter under the alias Darlene Fisher. This was more than likely where she discovered that Bobbi Jo was pregnant. It's unclear if at the dog show the women even spoke to each other or acknowledged each other. I'm gathering that something must have happened in order for Lisa to find Bobbi Jo's page, but not enough where Bobbi Jo would have recognised Lisa as not being called Darlene when she arrived to her house. So, Lisa discovered through the Reddit Chatter page that Bobbi Jo was pregnant, and it was at around this time, springtime 2004, that Lisa started claiming to be pregnant too, which was welcomed and exciting news for her husband Kevin. However, her ex-husband, a man named Carl Bowman, knew that that couldn't be true. After the birth of their final child before their separation, Lisa had been sterilised so that she couldn't have any more children. Lisa and Carl, who also happened to be step-brother and sister, shared 4 children, and in early 2004, they were going through a very rough custody battle. Carl wanted to take complete custody over the children that were living with Lisa. When they heard about her claims of pregnancy, they sent her emails threatening to expose her for her lies, to air her out to dry in court, and she responded that she would prove them wrong. Throughout her entire quote-unquote pregnancy, Kevin wasn't allowed to attend any hospital appointment, any midwife appointment, any appointment whatsoever that surrounded the baby. So he would take Lisa's word for everything. He blindly believed everything that she told him. On the 10th of December 2004, just under a week before the murder and the kidnapping, Carl filed a change of custody to the courts for his children, which I can imagine scared Lisa. She didn't want to lose custody of her kids. It's believed that that is what motivated her to do what she was about to do, so she could walk into the courtroom, baby in arms, and prove to Carl that she wasn't a liar, even though she would be the biggest one there. On the 15th of December, under the alias Darlene Fisher, Lisa arranged to arrive at Bobbi Jo's house under the pretense of buying one of her puppies. Bobbi Jo had told her husband Zeb and her mother Becky that a woman from Fairfax, Missouri was coming around that day. Both of them were at work, so Bobbi Jo would be home alone when this woman came. Lisa spent around about 2 hours driving from Melbourne to Skidmore, arriving at Bobbi Jo's house at about dinner time. Upon her arrival, Bobbi Jo warmly welcomed her inside. She went into the bedroom and got some of the puppies out of the kennels and then took them outside, where she and Lisa sat playing with them and probably having a bit of a natter too. Lisa would have got a first-hand glimpse into what a lovely, kind, warm young woman Bobbi Jo was, someone who probably would have been Lisa's friend. Lisa was there when Becky rang her daughter asking for a lift from work, and probably not too long after that phone call is when she attacked her. Lisa arrived having armed herself with a length of white rope/cord and a kitchen knife. Lisa wrapped the rope around Bobbi Jo's neck and pulled it so tight that it cut off her airways and she fell unconscious. Lisa would then push up Bobbi Jo's t-shirt, pulled out the knife, and began to slice into her abdomen. I can imagine that a mix of the pain, fear, and adrenaline made Bobbi Jo regain consciousness, and realizing what had happened and what this woman was trying to do, she tried to fight Lisa off, this being proven by all of the hairs still clutched in her fist. But Lisa was able to overpower Bobbi Jo once again and strangled her with the rope. Lisa successfully managed to cut into Bobbi Jo's abdomen through her muscle and her fat, getting to her womb, where she then extracted the baby, cutting the umbilical cord, and then fled. It's actually believed that while Lisa was in the process of doing this, that is when Becky was leaving that voicemail saying that she was going to walk over. Lisa probably felt that she was on a timer now. Bobbi Jo had the type of voicemail where when someone's leaving it, it's playing through the speakers, so Lisa could hear that Becky was going to start making her way over, so she didn't know how much time she had left. She fled the house with the baby in her arms, leaving the door wide open beside her. The door that as soon as Becky saw, she knew that something wasn't right. Lisa would tell the officers in the interview room that she almost didn't go ahead with committing the murder and the kidnapping. She reconsidered her actions, which I think shows that she knew that this was wrong, horrific, and sadistic. Something that her legal team later tried to say that she didn't know, but despite her reconsideration, she decided to do it anyway. Lisa drove for some time with the baby in her arms before she eventually pulled over. She cleaned down the baby with some baby wipes, dressed her in a baby grow, and then went to the boot of the car where she had stashed a car seat, pulled that out, clicked it into the back seat, and fastened the baby into the seat before driving away. Even just this act shows the amount of premeditation that went into this crime. None of Lisa's children were baby car seat aged, so she either kept a hold of one of her really, really old ones despite being sterilised and knowing that she would never have a newborn again, or she had went out and bought it as part of preparation of what she was about to do, which I find the more believable one, because she was going about telling people that she was pregnant. Her going out and buying a car seat would have been something that looked totally normal for an alleged pregnant woman. Lisa drove herself to Topeka, where she rang her husband Kevin, telling him that she had gone into labour while she was out Christmas shopping. She had given birth at the women's centre, and could he come pick her up from a random car park, which he did. Bear in mind, this wasn't the car park to the clinic, it was literally just some rando. I don't know how that didn't raise any questions for Kevin. And I also don't know what happened to the car. Did that just get left there, or I have no idea. The couple returned to their home with the baby and spent the entire day and night doting on her. Kevin was so happy to have his daughter. They pulled her Moses basket into the sitting room and slept beside her because none of them could bear to have any sort of distance away from her. The next morning, when everyone woke up, they all got ready and headed straight out to run a couple of errands. Lisa probably wanting to proudly show off what she was trying to make everyone believe was her daughter. They even stopped somewhere to have a spot of breakfast, and Lisa and Kevin appeared to be the happiest parents in their little baby bubble to anyone who saw them. The bubble quickly popping when shortly after their arrival back home following their breakfast, the dogs outside began to bark, signalling the arrival of police. It didn't even take them 24 hours to find her. Lisa Montgomery had planned for some time how she was going to murder a pregnant woman and kidnap her baby to pose as her own. During a search of her computer, it was found that Lisa had extensively researched how to perform cesareans, C-sections, and how she would go about registering a home birth. She purchased the rope and the knife used in the murder not too long before she committed it. On the day of the murder, she left her phone behind at home, but took her daughter's phone out with her. If for whatever reason police started looking into her and her phone records, those would show that she was at home all day, all the way in Melbourne, 120 miles away from the murder scene in Skidmore. I can absolutely bet that she was going to try and use that as evidence that she couldn't have committed the murder. This wasn't a coincidence or an accidental happening, it was a fully thought out thing by Lisa. During the over 2-hour drive to Bobbi Jo's home, Lisa predominantly used the back roads so that she wasn't seen. When her fingernail clippings were taken and they were examined, they showed to have had, quote, massive amounts of Bobbi Jo's DNA on them. Lisa was charged with kidnapping resulting in death, and this was a capital case, meaning that the death penalty was on the table. Her team in part consisted of a lawyer who had never tried a capital case before, and another man named Fred Duchard, who happened to have more of his clients sitting on death row than any other defense lawyer in the state. Actually, over half of the inmates on Missouri's death row happened to be his clients, so he wasn't a very good defense lawyer. This team tried to argue that Lisa wasn't responsible for committing the murder as she suffered from mental illness, and they specifically cited pseudocyesis, which is commonly known as a phantom pregnancy, that Lisa fully believed that she was pregnant, that she would have had all the symptoms of pregnancy, and that she had delusions that Bobbi Jo's baby was her own. The jury didn't believe this story, however, and in October of 2007 found Lisa Montgomery guilty of the charges, guilty of kidnapping resulting in the death of Bobbi Jo Stinnett. The jurors recommended a sentence of death and that is what she received. During her time in incarceration, Lisa spent time on an intensive psychiatric wing/ward, and here she would be diagnosed with several mental illnesses, including bipolar disorder, anxiety and depression, psychosis, mood swings, dissociation, PTSD, and memory loss. Lisa appealed her conviction, many times actually, and a new team were brought in to try and represent her. This is when we learned about her own horrific early life. Lisa was born on the 27th of February 1968. Her mother was named Judy, and there's no information that I could find about her biological father, but Judy would go on to marry a man who was described as a violent, angry drunk named Jack. When Lisa was just 3 years old, she shared a bedroom with her 8-year-old half-sister Diana. The room was so small that from each of their beds, the girls could kind of stick their arms out and touch each other. One evening, the girls are sleeping in bed when Lisa would witness Diane being raped by their male babysitter. By the time she turned 11, Lisa would no longer be a witness to sexual abuse, but she would be a victim. Jack started to abuse Lisa, and soon she would be raped by him multiple times per week. In order to further conceal what he was doing to Lisa, Jack built another room on the side of their trailer, which was deep in the Oklahoma woods, which he used for the sole purpose of abusing Lisa, where no one would be able to see or hear a single thing. There is an article out there that details exactly what happened to Lisa and what she had to endure at the hands of Jack. However, I'm not going to detail that in this episode because it is very, very graphic, but just know that it was absolutely barbaric. Whenever Lisa tried to push Jack away or fight him off, he would get violent with her. On one occasion, he slammed her head so hard into the concrete floor of that room that she suffered from brain damage. One day, Judy would walk in on Jack abusing her daughter, and instead of being hysterical and pulling him off her, comforting her baby and calling the police, she started blaming Lisa. Judy stormed out of the room, retrieved a gun, and pointed it at Lisa's head, screaming at her saying, "How could you do this to me?" Following this, Jack no longer had to hide what he was doing, because despite the threat with a gun, the abuse didn't stop. It actually worsened. He started inviting his friends over, where they would take turns abusing Lisa, sometimes more than one man or even 2 men at a time. They would also degrade this child, weighing on her in front of each other just to humiliate her. I can never wrap my head around that, because what do you mean there are several people involved in this, and not one of them thought that this was wrong and needed reporting somewhere? It makes me absolutely sick. What does even more so is that, shockingly, Judy started to encourage what was happening. If she fell behind on a bill, or she was skint and needed some more money, or she was needing some work done inside of the trailer, she would provide Lisa as a payment to these men, allowing them to do whatever they wanted to her daughter. To punish Lisa, Judy would force her to stand naked on the front porch of their trailer, where Jack and his drunken friends were able to see her and again allowed to do whatever they wanted to her. When Judy was sick of hearing Lisa talk, she would physically cover up her mouth with duct tape. The worst part about all of this barbaric abuse that's been inflicted on Lisa in her childhood is that it could have been prevented. She could have been helped. One of Lisa's other siblings was actually removed from the family by social services after reports of abuse, yet Lisa wasn't. She was left with the family, who had another child removed of them because of abuse. When social workers came by to speak and or see Lisa, they didn't just show up unannounced like they should have done. They actually rang ahead, letting Judy know that they were coming over, giving her the chance to clean up and coach Lisa, scare her, telling her what to say. Lisa was once examined by a doctor who was made aware of the abuse. This doctor told Judy, who of course we know already knew, but I'm gathering that he didn't. He probably expected Judy to go and make a report to the police, but he himself took no further action. He didn't think to raise it to any other service. When Judy went through her eventual divorce from Jack, I kid you not, the judge in that case told Judy off for not reporting the abuse of Lisa to the police, but then he didn't do anything either. He did not tell another person. He did not follow up on this child who he knew was horrifically getting abused. All of these services have an ample time to intervene, but instead they did nothing. They failed this young innocent girl. In August 1986, 18-year-old Lisa married her first husband, who also happened to be her stepbrother, Carl Bowman. They would go on to have 4 children together, and after the birth of their final child, that's when Lisa was sterilised. They eventually divorced, Lisa leaving with the children and remarrying Kevin Montgomery. For several years, Lisa would fake pregnancies, and Kevin had no idea that she couldn't have any more children, so he believed her each and every time she said she was pregnant. One time, Lisa claimed to have carried a baby to full term, but then the baby either miscarried or was born stillborn, and Kevin couldn't see the baby's body, as Lisa said that she donated it to science. All of that being a complete fabrication. It was a total lie. Come 2004, Carl was fighting to regain custody of his children, and it's widely believed that Lisa somehow thought that if she had another baby, this would aid her in the custody battle at court. Even better, she would be able to prove Carl wrong, who said she couldn't get pregnant anymore, and that is why she went on to murder Bobbi Jo Stinnett and kidnap her baby.
Zootopia 2 has come home to Disney+.
Let's go!
Get ready for a new case.
We're the greatest partners of all time!
New friends.
Gary the Snake.
And your last name?
The Snake.
Dream Team. And new habitats.
Zootopia has a secret reptile population.
You can watch the record-breaking phenomenon at home. Zootopia 2, now available on Disney+, rated PG. And right now you can get Disney Plus and Hulu for just $4.99 a month for 3 months with a special limited time offer. Ends March 24th. After 3 months, plan auto renews at $12.99 a month. Terms apply.
Are you stuck staring at your W-2? Are tax refund worries holding you back? You probably have FOMO, the fear of messing up. The fix? Using TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They find every credit and deduction to help you get every refund dollar you deserve, or your money back. It's time to overcome your fear of messing up and get your taxes done right. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
Following her conviction and death sentence, Lisa Montgomery spent most of her 14-ish years on death row at the Federal Medical Center Carswell, which is in Texas. This is a prison that accommodates women who have medical and mental health needs. Her days would mostly consist of isolation, sitting in her cell, and having minimal contact with the outside world. She and her legal team tried and failed to appeal the charge and the sentence. They did manage to secure Lisa stays of execution, meaning that a scheduled execution will be halted while an evaluation takes place. Something they continuously wanted to evaluate was whether it was even ethical to sentence Lisa to death because of her extensive mental health needs. One of Lisa's close friends would say that Lisa wouldn't even be able to comprehend that she was being put to death, and compared it to putting a 5-year-old to death. All of her appeals would be futile. On the 11th of January 2021, Lisa was transferred to Terre Haute Prison in Indiana to await her execution. She would be the first woman in almost 70 years to be put to death. 2 days later, on the 13th of January 2021, 52-year-old Lisa Montgomery was executed by lethal injection. She requested that none of her family attend her execution. When asked if she had any final words, she simply said no. Many people who campaigned against Lisa's execution after finding out everything that happened to her in her childhood said that Lisa, quote, is not the worst of the worst, she is the broken of the broken. Her life was marked with several mental illnesses and extensive trauma. Lisa had a childhood consistent of unimaginable abuse, but that doesn't take away from the absolute barbaric, horrific act that she did. She murdered Bobbi Jo Stinnett, a young pregnant woman, cutting her baby from her womb and kidnapping her. A fully realised, premeditated plan. The baby was returned to her father Zeb and has had the full support of her entire family, as she has had to navigate growing up without the love, care and adoration that she no doubt would have been showered in by her mother. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Don't forget to follow the podcast so that you never miss a new upload. You can also find photos and updates over on Instagram at TrueCrimeCaitlyn. I appreciate you for being here, and I'll catch you all on the next one.